Have you ever felt like your life is being pulled in directions that don't feel like your own? We've all been there. That moment when you realize something in your life doesn't align with who you truly are. It's as if someone else is quietly rewriting your priorities without asking for your permission, shifting the course of your life bit by bit without you even noticing. At first, it's subtle, easy to dismiss, and you think, this is just life. This is what happens as you grow older. Everyone goes through it. But then, over time, you realize something deeper. The quiet shifts aren't just minor changes. They are fundamental adjustments that slowly take away the essence of what you truly want. You start feeling like you're not the one making the choices anymore. Life is making them for you, and you're merely following along. Why is it that as we grow older, we seem to accumulate more expectations, more responsibilities, more emotional debts that don't feel like they belong to us at all? It's almost as if life, with all its obligations and demands, has become a never-ending checklist of things to do for others. And it feels like the older we get, the more we're expected to carry. Each year the weight increases. The demands from family, friends, colleagues and society pile up, often without us even realizing it. At first we take it on with the assumption that we have to, because that's just what people do. But as the years pass, this taking on becomes more of an automatic response. It becomes expected of us, as if it's our role in life to carry the emotional and practical burdens of others. We begin to wonder, why do we allow ourselves to get pulled in all these directions? Why does it feel so hard to say no when we know something isn't right for us? There's a concept Carl Jung once shared that seems to ring especially true in these moments. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how can you become who you are if you're constantly being shaped and molded by the needs and expectations of everyone around you? The privilege Jung speaks of doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It requires a conscious effort, a willingness to step back, and the courage to say no when things begin to disturb your peace. Yet, as we age, we often find ourselves with less room to breathe, less time to reflect, and more demands being placed on us. We forget that there's a space inside each of us that belongs only to us, a space where we can hear our own voice, make our own decisions, and follow our own desires. This space is often drowned out by the noise of life, the responsibilities, the commitments, the people asking for more than they should. The longer we allow these external demands to define us, the further we drift from our true selves. The truth is simple: anything that disturbs your peace isn't worth your time. We all come to this realization at different points in our lives, but when we do, it changes everything. We suddenly begin to understand that our time, energy, and peace of mind are the most valuable assets we have. And once we understand that, we can start to reclaim the space we've lost. But here's the catch: the moment you begin to reclaim that peace, you might feel resistance. Others may not understand why you're stepping back, why you're setting boundaries, why you're choosing to say no. And that's okay. Not everyone will respect the changes you make, especially those who've gotten used to taking pieces of you without asking. But this shift, this act of protecting your peace, is necessary for your survival. You don't have to be a rescuer. You don't have to take on the burdens of others just because they're too afraid or too unwilling to carry them themselves. And yet, many people will ask you to do exactly that. They'll ask you to step in and hold their life together when they haven't even tried to solve their own problems. At first, it may feel good to help. You might think that offering your support is a sign of love and compassion. But here's the reality: caring does not mean carrying. And if you keep carrying what isn't yours to bear, you'll soon find that the cost is much greater than you ever expected. It doesn't just drain your energy or waste your time, it robs you of your health, your peace, and your very sense of self. At some point, you have to realize that you are not here to be anyone's safety net, backup plan, or eternal fixer. Your life is yours to live, not to be held together by your constant efforts to patch up the lives of others. People who love you should understand this. They should respect the space you need to grow, to heal, and to become who you truly are. But when they don't, it's up to you to set that boundary. The moment you understand this, you'll begin to feel lighter. You'll start making choices that nurture your soul and protect your peace, and in doing so, you'll free yourself from the burdens of others' expectations. There's a particular kind of silence that follows when someone you care about asks for money. It's not the usual quiet that comes with a simple request, but a thick, uncomfortable silence, filled with unspoken pressure, and often emotional manipulation. The request may come in a gentle form. Can you lend me some money? I need it to get through a tough time. But beneath the surface, the situation is more complex. It's not about an emergency, not about a genuine need in a moment of crisis. It's about someone's repeated poor choices, and now they're looking to you to fix it. This isn't just a loan request. It's a request for you to take on their consequences. It's about them asking you to shoulder the burden of their decisions, of the mess they've made, without acknowledging that they are the ones who created it in the first place. And when you refuse, it's never a simple no. No, it often comes with guilt, with a turning of the tables. You become the bad one, the one who isn't there when they need you, the one who doesn't understand what they're going through. But here's the truth. Lending money to someone who isn't in a genuine emergency situation isn't just about the dollar amount. It's about what that money represents. Your hard-earned stability, your comfort, your peace. Over the years you've worked tirelessly to build what you have, piece by piece, day by day, sacrifice by sacrifice. You've spent decades securing your financial well-being, and with that, the safety that comes with it. When you lend money to someone who doesn't truly need it, when you give away what you've worked so hard for, it's not just the money that's taken, it's your peace of mind. You may feel like you're being generous by offering a loan, thinking that you're helping someone in need. But what you're really doing is feeding into a cycle where someone else's irresponsibility becomes your problem to solve. And the most dangerous part, they may not even see it as their responsibility anymore. It becomes your duty to fix them, to carry their burden for them. But that's not how generosity works. Generosity comes from a place of choice, not obligation. When you say yes out of guilt, or the fear of being seen as selfish, you're not being generous, you're erasing yourself. You're putting their needs above your own, even when those needs don't deserve to take priority. And it's not selfish to protect your financial boundaries. In fact, it's the most responsible thing you can do. If you give away your financial safety for someone else's temporary fix, you're not helping them in the long run. You're only enabling a cycle that will continue to drain you. Saying no to lending money doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you wise. You've earned the right to protect what you've worked for, to safeguard the financial security that allows you to live without constant anxiety. And while it might sting in the moment, while the guilt might try to creep in, remember that saying no is not an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-preservation. It's a declaration that you are no longer willing to sacrifice your peace, your financial stability, or your well-being for someone else's lack of preparation or poor decisions. Sometimes protecting your peace means setting firm boundaries, and that includes not allowing others to take what they have no right to. Not your money, not your time, not your energy. And while others may try to guilt-trip you into giving, you have to remind yourself that your money is not a tool for other people to misuse. It's the result of your hard work, your discipline, your effort. Lending money without a real emergency, without a clear need, is more than just financial. It's emotional. It's about your right to control your resources, to decide where your energy and money go. And when you give, it should be because you genuinely want to, not because you feel forced into it by guilt or the manipulation of someone else's emotions. So the next time someone asks you for money under these circumstances, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, is this truly an emergency? Am I being asked to solve something that is not my responsibility? Trust yourself. Trust your right to say no. Because the truth is, the moment you start using your resources to solve problems that aren't yours to begin with, you'll find yourself not only drained financially, but emotionally as well. And that's a price no one should have to pay. Family conflicts have a peculiar way of drawing you in, often when you least expect it. Even when you've made it clear that you don't want to be involved, somehow you find yourself right in the middle of it, trying to mediate between family members who refuse to see eye to eye. It's not that you want to be there, but there's this invisible force that tugs at you, urging you to step in. Please talk to her. She won't listen to me. Can you help us fix this? It might seem like a harmless request, one that comes from a place of love, but the reality is far more complex. What starts as an innocent ask to be a peacemaker soon turns into a role that is not only exhausting, but damaging to your own peace of mind. You're thrust into the emotional crossfire of family members who have unresolved issues, and suddenly, you're expected to carry the weight of everyone's emotions. At first you may feel like it's your duty, your role in the family, to be the mediator. After all, you're the one who's always tried to maintain harmony, the one who believes in the power of healing and reconciliation. But what happens when that desire to keep the peace begins to drain you? What happens when you're constantly pulled in different directions, forced to choose sides, or to take on the responsibility of fixing situations that others should be handling themselves? The truth is, not all family conflicts are yours to solve, no matter how much you care or how strongly you feel about preserving relationships. Some arguments, some struggles, are not yours to fight, and stepping into them only adds to the chaos. You might be asked to referee sibling disputes, to act as a mediator between parents and children, or to play the role of the emotional go-between in arguments that have nothing to do with you. What's dangerous about this is that the more you involve yourself, the more you become entangled in the web of family drama. It's like trying to untangle a knot, only to find that with every pull, the knot gets tighter. You start to feel like the center of the storm, the one who is always expected to hold things together. But here's the reality: when you try to keep things together in a family that refuses to heal or to work through its issues on its own, you only end up burning through your own emotional reserves. It's as if you're trying to carry a weight that doesn't belong to you, and with each new conflict, it becomes harder and harder to stand tall. You begin to feel like you're losing yourself in the process, like your life is being hijacked by the needs and demands of others who aren't willing to put in the effort to resolve their own problems. Let's say, for example, that your siblings are fighting over the inheritance, or a beloved family home becomes a battleground for egos and past resentments. Now you're stuck in the middle, expected to referee the situation, to find a solution that keeps everyone happy. But you didn't start the fight, you weren't the one who created the conflict, and yet you're the one who's being asked to clean it all up, to play the role of the emotional first responder, as if your role in the family is to patch up the cracks that no one else is willing to heal. This is when you have to ask yourself, is this really my responsibility? The answer is no, it's not. You're not meant to be the mediator in every family dispute. Your role in the family is not to sacrifice your own emotional health for the sake of peace that's only temporary. There comes a point when you have to step back and let others handle their own issues. You cannot be the emotional anchor for everyone else, especially when it comes at the expense of your own well-being. Your emotional energy is a limited resource, and it should be spent on healing, on joy, on building your own life, not on trying to fix relationships that aren't ready to be fixed. When you continuously step into these roles, you end up giving up pieces of yourself, losing your own sense of identity, and being pulled further and further away from the life you truly want to live. Family drama is toxic when it becomes your responsibility to carry it, and you do not have to be collateral damage in someone else's unresolved conflicts. You might think that by stepping in you're doing the right thing. You might tell yourself that by fixing things, by being the mediator, you're keeping the family together. But what you're actually doing is draining yourself, allowing yourself to become a pawn in someone else's emotional chess game. It's not your job to heal the wounds of others when they aren't ready to do the work themselves. It's not your job to sacrifice your peace just so others can maintain their comfort in dysfunctional relationships. You can love your family, care about them deeply, but you have to set boundaries. You are allowed to say no to the role of emotional caretaker, and you should, because the truth is, you don't owe anyone your peace. It's time to stop being the emotional referee in everyone else's battles. The emotional fuel you have is precious, and it's yours to protect. There comes a moment in life, usually quiet and almost imperceptible, when someone says something that makes you question who you are. You shouldn't wear that. You should stop listening to that kind of music. Don't talk like that. It's outdated. These words may seem like innocent suggestions, but they carry a much deeper message. What they are really saying, whether consciously or unconsciously, is stop being you. This may seem harmless on the surface, but it's actually a silent form of violence against your soul, a subtle attempt to rewrite the very essence of who you are. Over the years, you've spent countless hours, days and years becoming the person you are today, through every joy and every loss, through every decision you've made, whether right or wrong. All these experiences have shaped you, built you up, and created the individual who stands before the world today. And now someone wants you to erase all of that to fit into a mold that isn't yours. The problem with this request is that it isn't just about changing superficial things like your appearance or the music you listen to. It's about denying the very core of your being. You are not a blank canvas, waiting for others to paint their version of who you should be. You are not a trend to be shaped and molded based on someone else's preferences or desires. When someone asks you to change to make them more comfortable, to fit into their idea of who you should be, they are demanding that you erase parts of yourself that matter deeply. And if you listen to those requests, if you start changing to please others, it's like chipping away at a sculpture that took years to form. Each chip might seem small at first, but over time it erodes the very foundation of your identity. People often confuse this kind of change with personal growth. They think that if someone is asking you to be different, it's for your own good, that maybe you need to update, to modernize, to evolve. But here's the truth. Growth is not about abandoning your true self to fit someone else's expectations. True growth is about expanding, evolving and improving while staying rooted in who you are. It's about adding to the person you've become without losing the essence of yourself in the process. It's about learning and adapting to the world without compromising your values, your passions, or the things that make you unique. When you start changing yourself to make others happy, when you mold yourself to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be, you are losing pieces of yourself without even realizing it. And the more you do this, the more you begin to feel lost. You look in the mirror and see a version of yourself that doesn't feel familiar anymore. It's like you're wearing someone else's clothes, speaking someone else's words, living a life that's not truly yours. This is the dangerous path of self-erasure, a road that many people walk without realizing the cost. It's not about being stubborn, difficult or inflexible. It's about survival. When you begin to compromise who you are for the sake of others, you start to lose the things that matter most. Your authenticity is not something that should be compromised for someone else's comfort or approval. If you continuously trade pieces of your true self for the sake of fitting in or making others happy, eventually you won't recognize the person staring back at you in the mirror. You'll feel disconnected from the person you once were, and you'll wonder how you got so far from the life you truly wanted. This isn't about rejecting feedback or being resistant to change. It's about drawing a line in the sand when it comes to your values and your identity. Change can be a beautiful thing, but it should always come from a place of self-awareness and personal growth, not from the demands of others who want you to fit into their narrow view of the world. You deserve to be loved and accepted for exactly who you are, not for who someone else wants you to be. It's important to remember that staying true to yourself is not an act of rebellion, it's an act of self-respect. It's about honoring your journey, your story, and the person you've become. When you start to change just to please others, you are sacrificing your own sense of self. You become what they want you to be, and in doing so you lose the parts of you that make you unique, that make you whole. Don't let anyone convince you that you need to be something other than who you are. Don't let anyone make you feel like your authenticity is negotiable. Your identity is sacred, and it is the foundation upon which your peace and joy rest. If you give it away to please others, you risk losing everything that matters most to you. So the next time someone tries to change you, whether it's your appearance, your choices, or the way you express yourself, remember this: you have the right to remain who you are. Your authenticity is a gift you've given to yourself, earned through years of experiences, choices, and growth. Don't let anyone take that from you, and certainly don't let them convince you that it's better to be someone else just to make them feel more comfortable. Because the truth is, the only person you need to be true to is yourself. There is an invisible form of manipulation that often goes unnoticed until it's too late, and it can happen in the most intimate of relationships. It starts with a simple, seemingly harmless request. If you really love me, you would do this. Or maybe it's more subtle, like, please don't make me feel uncomfortable by doing that. These words, though wrapped in a veneer of love or concern, carry a weight that many people overlook. What they're truly saying, underneath the surface, is your happiness doesn't matter as much as mine. Your emotional needs are secondary to mine. This is a distortion of love, a form of control disguised as affection. When someone demands that you put their emotions above your own, they are subtly asking you to silence your own voice, your own needs and your own desires, all for the sake of their comfort. The problem with this dynamic is that it sets a dangerous precedent. You begin to feel as though your own happiness is always secondary. You start to believe that your emotional world should bend and shift to accommodate someone else's whims and feelings. It's a form of emotional servitude, where you are expected to prioritize the other person's peace at the expense of your own. But real love, real connection, is not about sacrificing your own well-being for someone else's comfort. It's about mutual respect, understanding, and support. When someone demands that you suppress your emotions, your desires, or your happiness just to make them feel better, they are taking something from you, your peace, your sense of self, your autonomy. This kind of emotional manipulation doesn't always appear overtly malicious, but the effects can be just as damaging. Over time, you begin to lose your sense of self. Your decisions are no longer based on what you truly want, but on what will keep the other person from feeling uncomfortable or upset. Every choice you make becomes filtered through their emotional lens, and you are left with little space to breathe, to grow, or to exist for yourself. You become a puppet, dancing to someone else's emotional tune, constantly adjusting yourself to their emotional highs and lows. You may even start to feel guilty for having your own feelings, for needing things that don't revolve around their comfort or approval. This in itself is a form of self-erasure, where your own emotional needs are dismissed in favor of someone else's. It's important to recognize when this dynamic is taking place, because if you don't, you will find yourself trapped in a cycle of emotional exhaustion. You will keep giving and giving, sacrificing more of yourself with each passing day, until you are nothing but a shadow of who you once were. Your peace, which should be your most sacred possession, becomes an afterthought, something you give up willingly, just to maintain the appearance of harmony in the relationship. But here's the truth: peace is not found in constant sacrifice. True peace comes when you can exist fully, unapologetically, and without the need to shrink yourself to make someone else feel comfortable. When you put someone else's emotions above your own constantly, you are not fostering a healthy relationship. What you're fostering is an environment where your needs are ignored, where your desires are secondary, and where your own emotional well-being is constantly compromised. No relationship, whether familial, romantic, or even friendship, should ever ask you to erase your emotions, to hide your happiness, or to suppress your voice, just so the other person doesn't feel uncomfortable. True love and respect come when both parties are free to express their emotions, their needs and their desires, without the fear of making the other person feel uneasy. This emotional manipulation, when it goes unchecked, can leave scars that are difficult to heal. Over time, you may find that you no longer know what it feels like to put yourself first, to make decisions that are purely for your own well-being. You may feel guilty for wanting to pursue your own happiness, for making choices that don't revolve around someone else's comfort, and this guilt, if allowed to fester, will slowly erode your sense of self-worth and your ability to live authentically. This is why it's so important to recognize when you are being asked to prioritize someone else's emotions over your own, and to understand that it is not a form of love. It is a distortion, a manipulation, and a betrayal of your own inner peace. It's not selfish to put yourself first. It's not wrong to honor your own feelings, your own needs and your own joy. In fact, it is essential for your well-being. If you constantly allow others to dictate how you feel, to impose their emotional needs on you, then you will never be able to live a life that is truly yours. You will always be living in service to someone else's emotional comfort, and in the process, you will lose yourself. You will lose the ability to live in alignment with your own truth, and your own peace will be constantly out of reach. So remember this: you are not here to erase yourself to make others comfortable. You are not here to live a life where your happiness is secondary. You are allowed to say no to emotional servitude, to set boundaries around your own emotional well-being, and to protect the peace you've worked so hard to build. Your emotions are valid, your happiness is valid, and above all, your peace is sacred. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. One of the most draining and insidious forms of emotional manipulation comes when you become the emotional dumping ground for others. It happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. At first, you may feel like a good listener, a compassionate friend, or a supportive partner. You provide a safe space for someone to express their feelings, to vent their frustrations, and to unload the emotional weight they carry. And while this seems noble, there's a fine line between being there for someone and becoming their personal emotional landfill, a place where they deposit their unhappiness, anger, and pain without ever taking responsibility for it themselves. At the beginning, it's easy to think that this is just part of being there for someone. After all, relationships are about support, right? But over time, you begin to realize that every conversation seems to revolve around their problems, their frustrations, and their emotional baggage. You become their go-to person for emotional release, expected to absorb all the pain and negativity they carry. But here's the catch: they never seem to give anything back. There's no reciprocity, no effort to listen to you when you need to talk, no attempt to offer you the same emotional support that you so freely give to them. Instead, you find yourself drained, depleted, and emotionally exhausted, all while they continue to unload on you without ever offering their own compassion or empathy in return. This dynamic is one of the most subtle forms of emotional exploitation. It starts with small requests, just needing someone to talk to, just venting about a bad day, just needing a shoulder to cry on. But before you know it, these moments of sharing morph into a one-sided relationship, where you're left carrying the weight of someone else's emotional world, while they are free to dump their problems on you without a second thought. You begin to feel like you are not being heard or understood, that your own emotional needs are secondary to theirs. You start to feel like a mere vessel, a conduit for their emotions, but not a person whose emotions matter. And that's when the real damage begins. The truth is, we all need someone to lean on, someone to listen, and someone to help us process our emotions. But when this becomes an ongoing pattern, where you're always the one providing emotional support, and never receiving it in return, it becomes a toxic dynamic. This isn't about being there for someone during tough times. That's what true relationships are built on. It's about being constantly used as a receptacle for their emotions, while yours go unheard, unnoticed, and unacknowledged. Over time, you may begin to feel invisible, like your own pain doesn't matter, like your emotional world is irrelevant. And that's when you need to draw a boundary. It's not selfish to protect yourself from being someone's emotional sponge. In fact, it's necessary for your mental and emotional health. You are not obligated to be the person who always listens, always observes, and always gives without ever receiving. Healthy relationships are built on mutual support and respect, not emotional exhaustion. When someone consistently offloads their emotional turmoil onto you, without ever checking in to see how you're doing or offering support in return, it's a clear sign that the balance has been disrupted, and it's time to reclaim your peace. By constantly allowing someone to unload on you without setting boundaries, you allow them to perpetuate a one-sided relationship. This is where resentment can begin to creep in. You may feel like you're doing all the emotional labor, but you're not getting the same in return. Over time, the emotional toll starts to add up, and the weight becomes unbearable. You may find yourself withdrawing, becoming more frustrated, or even resenting the very person you once cared about. This is the natural result of emotional imbalance. The first step in stopping this cycle is recognizing it. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with someone who constantly dumps their emotions on you. Do you feel drained, empty? Do you feel like your own needs are being ignored? If the answer is yes, then it's time to set a boundary. It's okay to tell someone that you're unable to be their emotional punching bag. It's okay to say, "I'm here for you, but I also need to take care of my own emotional health." Setting this boundary doesn't mean you don't care about them. It means you care about yourself too. And while it may be difficult at first, establishing these boundaries will ultimately lead to healthier relationships. It will allow both you and the other person to process emotions in a more balanced way, where both of your needs are valued and respected. It's important to remember that you don't have to sacrifice your emotional well-being for someone else's comfort. You have the right to protect your peace, to keep your emotional energy intact, and to make sure that your needs are being met just as much as theirs. In the end, the key to healthy relationships is reciprocity. It's about give and take, where both people support each other and respect each other's emotional boundaries. If you find that someone is constantly unloading their emotional baggage on you without offering the same in return, it's a clear sign that you need to set boundaries. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, because your emotional health is just as important as theirs. As we've explored, the demands placed on you by others can quickly become overwhelming, whether it's carrying burdens that aren't yours, lending money when you should protect your finances, mediating family drama, changing who you are to please others, or prioritizing their emotions over your own. Each of these actions, while often masked as acts of kindness or love, can chip away at the core of who you are. It's easy to get caught up in trying to meet everyone else's needs. But the truth is, if you keep sacrificing your own peace, you'll eventually find yourself emotionally depleted, lost and disconnected from the very essence of who you are. It's time to reclaim your peace, and the first step in doing that is learning the power of no. Saying no is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of self-preservation. It's about protecting the energy you have left, guarding your emotional well-being, and making sure that your boundaries are respected. When you say no to requests that don't align with your values, your peace, or your sense of self, you're saying yes to your own well-being. You're acknowledging that you are worthy of time, space, and emotional freedom. You deserve to live a life where your happiness, health, and inner peace come first. And that can only happen when you stop saying yes to everyone else and start saying yes to yourself. No one has the right to demand pieces of you that you're not willing to give. No one has the right to ask you to compromise your peace for the sake of their convenience. You are not obligated to carry the weight of other people's expectations, sacrifices, or emotional needs if it comes at the cost of your own mental, emotional, or physical health. You are allowed to say no without feeling guilty. You are allowed to walk away from situations, relationships, or demands that rob you of your peace. And above all, you are allowed to choose yourself, your boundaries, and your happiness. Remember, peace is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Without it, you cannot function at your highest potential. Without it, you cannot show up as your best self for the people who truly matter in your life. Protect your peace as though it is your most precious possession, because in many ways, it is everything else, whether it's responsibilities, requests, or expectations, pales in comparison to the value of your inner peace. Don't let anyone take it from you. Stand firm in your boundaries, protect your energy, and above all, remember, you are worthy of the life you choose to live, one that nourishes your soul and respects your peace. So, I want to leave you with this question. What is one thing you can say no to today that will protect your peace and allow you to reclaim your energy? It's a small step, but it's one that will help you build a life where you're living in alignment with your own truth and your own needs. Start today. Start now. Your peace is worth it.